Do you consider yourself a good communicator? What does it mean to be a good listener? You could find the answers to both these questions surprising in this book, Supercommunicators: How to Unlock the Secret Language of Connection by Charles Duhigg. I found the answers to those questions surprising. The definition of supercommunicator is summed up best in this paragraph. When we looked at the lives of high centrality participants, we found they were unusual in other respects. They had much larger social networks than the average person and were more likely to be elected to positions of authority or entrusted with power. Other people turned to them when they needed to discuss something serious or ask for advice. And that makes sense, because if you're the kind of person who's easy to talk to, then lots of people are going to want to talk to you. In other words, the high centrality participants are supercommunicators. To start out, this book covers that there are usually only 3 types of conversation any of us are ever having at one time. The first is, what's this really about? Also known as the decision-making mindset. The second, how do we feel? Also known as the emotional mindset. And the third, who are we? Also known as the social mindset. And what was interesting is the who are we conversation is 70% of our conversations, which would make sense because most of our conversations, I think of, are social. The book goes on to talk about what makes a good super communicator is their ability to do matching versus mirroring. The book defines matching. It is important to note that matching isn't mimicry. As you'll see in the forthcoming chapters, we need to genuinely understand what someone is feeling, what they want, and who they are. And you'll notice that is all 3 of the conversation types: feeling, the emotional mindset, what they want, the decision-making mindset, and who they are, the social mindset. I found this part about mirroring versus matching interesting because I think a lot of times we think mirroring makes us a good listener. The book points out, though, that mirroring is a lot of the times just mimicry, and it can come across as false, whereas matching, we actually try to put ourselves in a person's mindset with them. It comes across a lot more authentically. What I also thought was really interesting is what the book additionally said about listening, our own response to when we feel we are being listened. And the book pointed out that a person who is leaning forward, makes eye contact, smiles, back channels, as in saying, "Oh, yes," or "interesting." And a person who might even interrupt you is giving you more active signals that they're listening, versus a person who is quiet, their expression is passive, their eyes fixed somewhere besides your face. They don't actually give you signals that they are listening. I thought that was really interesting because I do feel there is a lot of teaching out there that a good listener is silent, but that maybe that isn't really making people feel like they are being listened to. The book also brings up the subject of what they call the learning conversation, which has 4 steps to it. Pay attention to what kind of conversation is occurring, which goes back to the 3 types of conversation. Sharing your goals, ask about others' feelings, and share your own. The book talks a lot about giving vulnerability, not just will get you to a point with better communication with a person than remaining closed off and not talking about yourself. And explore if identities are important in this discussion. In a learning conversation, our goal is to understand what's going on inside others' heads and to share what's happening within our own. A learning conversation nudges us to pay better attention, listen more closely, speak more openly, and express what might otherwise go unsaid. It elicits alignment by convincing everyone that we all want to genuinely understand one another and by revealing ways to connect. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. I found it's harder to become a super communicator than you might initially think. And the book does point that out, that while it sounds simple to start using the tools in this book to better communicate with people, it's not. There's so much ingrained in our own habits of communicating. I am already finding it hard to break those habits. I hope to see you at the book club meeting on September 11th. Thank you.